Hey, what's up, everybody? Here we are again with the Energy is Love podcast. We need to thank our sponsors for all the wonderful things that they do. Crystal Water Float Spa out here in Twilla, Utah is an amazing place to go experience sensory deprivation. Crystal Water has been a great support for the podcast. If you've never tried it before, now's the time. It's a wonderful thing. It's a great experience. You get to lay back in a tank full of 300 gallons of water with 1,200 pounds of Epsom salt, and you float right to the top of that tank. Really, if you haven't done it, you need to go do it. Get in the water, float, enjoy it, see what it can do for you. I float for the spiritual aspect of it. I get all the physical benefits from floating, but for me, I like to go into that tank and use that time, use that hour for a nice long meditation. They're online at crystalwaterfloat.com. You can also find their Facebook page at Crystal Water Float Spa. One of our favorite sponsors is Man, sponsoring small businesses for the past 10 years. Coming up next weekend on June 4th, Saturday, June 4th, we're going to have a spiritual intuitive fair at Crystal Water Float Spa. It's going to be a fair based around spirituality, energy work, different practitioners, different modalities, everybody doing their own thing. But it's a good opportunity to come out and experience some of the stuff that we talk about on the podcast, get to meet actually some of the people who've been on the podcast. We're going to have a little bit of everything at this fair. So remember, it's June 4th from 10 to 6 at Crystal Water Float Spa in Twilla. The address is 40 West Vine Street. Check it out. If you're enjoying the podcast and you like what we're doing, we're always looking for more sponsors. So please reach out, contact us on Facebook, or you can email us at energyislovepodcast@gmail.com. If you just like what we're doing and you want to donate, we have a GoFundMe account set up. You can link to it from our Facebook page. Our Facebook page is Energy is Love Podcast. Just throw us some money. Give us a little bit of support, a little bit of that energy so that we can keep going and doing what we're doing. On this episode, we have Curtis Forbush. Curtis is part of the sound bath experience. He's an amazing man that does sound healing sessions with his clients. He also does some shamanic work and incorporates some Reiki and different energy modalities when he works with clients. Curtis shares his experience from his visit to Peru last year, spiritual historical sites like Machu Picchu and some of the other less known ones that he really enjoyed. You can find Curtis on Facebook at Mystical Alchemist. That's his Facebook page. Just search that and you'll find him. You can also find information about the sound bath experience on Facebook as well. But appreciate you guys listening, and I hope you enjoy this episode. So here we go. Energy is love. Energy is love.
The Energy is Love podcast.
Energy is love.
The Energy is Love podcast.
The Energy is Love podcast.
The Energy is Love podcast.
Podcast for the universe. Energy is love.
That's perfect.
Welcome to the Energy is Love podcast. Today, my guest is Curtis Forbush. Curtis is part of the sound bath experience, and he does a whole bunch of other really cool things, so I'm excited to talk to him today. Curtis, how are we doing today?
Great. How are you doing?
Good. I'm really excited, like I said, to sit down with you. I've been looking forward to this interview. So, where would you like to get started?
I'm going to leave that up to you. How's that?
There you go. Throw it back at me.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, first off, tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where you originated from. I mean, are you a Utah native or?
Born and raised in Salt Lake.
Mm-hmm.
Left thinking I'd never come back, like a lot of people, and came back, and a lot of it what drew me back were the mountains and nature and family. But I kind of went on my own little, what I call it was my own little mission.
Where did you go?
Maui, Santa Fe, Dallas. I worked for an art gallery out of Santa Fe and got to travel quite a bit.
Well, that's cool.
So I got to see a little bit of the world and different cultures and people. But it was about that time I was supposed to go on my mission, and I decided that my mission was going to be what I wanted it to be.
That's cool. So did you grow up LDS?
Yes.
You're not still active, are you?
Oh, no.
No.
I knew very early on in childhood that it didn't fit me. I remember as a child laying in the park, probably as early as 6 or 7, looking up into the sky saying, "You put me in the wrong place. This is not for me." and I knew it didn't fit.
Yeah.
But I'm very thankful for that upbringing. It gave me a foundation when I finally did go out to look at other religions and spirituality. I had this great foundation to do it from. And I don't think I would have studied and really, it was a voracious time of book after book after book, spirituality, this one subject after another, because I wanted to know what was out there, because what I was raised in didn't fit me.
Yeah.
And so I'm absolutely grateful for what I was raised and how that gave me the ability and pushed me to search for something.
To go and find that information yourself, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Find what connected.
Yeah. And I think in my search, what I found, and I still see it, is that there's so many right ways. There's so many things that work for people. And it's a matter of finding what works for you.
Yeah.
For me, the boxes and the rules and the structure never worked. To ask my parents, I was never much about any of that. But for some people, that's what they want. That's what they need. And that's great. That just didn't work for me.
It just wasn't for you.
No.
Well, I think that because in my own search and my own investigation and studying of everything, one of the cool things I found was that there's so many commonalities between different religions and beliefs, and even incorporating that into spirituality. I mean, for me, I think there's just, the basis of all of that stuff, I feel like is the same. And then it just, it spreads from there. And like you said, you just find what resonates and connects with you as a person and everything like that. So
yeah, exactly. Well, and what I've done is, I've taken bits and pieces of all the different things and tried to use those, the things that feel right. And I've given myself permission to walk away from things that don't.
Yeah.
I've had a book, and you read a book and it might be one page that you get something from, but that one page was why you read that book.
For sure.
And it doesn't mean the other stuff is wrong. It's just not for you.
Yeah. I think there's enough space in the universe that everything's right.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of what you find and what you want.
Yeah. Well, and I think my thoughts and feelings is we've all come down here to learn something. Some of us need to learn it in a different structure, in a different path. There are as many paths as there are people.
Mm-hmm.
But what's yours? And then it's a matter of, I think, allowing people to walk their path and not saying, this is the path.
Yeah. Forcing them in your direction.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your path? What have you found? Other than obviously you like seeking out information and looking and trying to find stuff, but have you gotten to the point in life where you know what your path is?
Personally, I don't think I'll ever know. I think it's a constant change, because there's always something to learn. My love, my foundation is the connection to Mother Earth and to the cosmos. And I guess some of the old shamanic and Indian the medicine man and the things that they did, the indigenous cultures, how they connected and the way they looked at Earth. And I love that aspect of it, because I think what happens, well, for me, and I've watched it in some of my clients, is when you start to realize that nature is speaking to you and you connect to the tree or the stream, and you understand that it is conscious and alive and has information and wisdom, you start to understand how magical you are.
Yeah.
We've forgotten the power that we have and the magic that we are. And that connection to nature starts to waken that up, I think. And for me, it's simple. It's right outside. It's right there. It's free. Take a hike up the canyon. So I love nature. I studied all the Tao Te Ching and Buddhism. I loved aspects of that.
Mm-hmm.
There are pieces of that I've used. I think the Tao Te Ching is a wonderful book. And then I continually studied. I studied Wiccan stuff because I just wanted to know what people were doing. I've studied. I've gone in and looked at the religions and looked, the structured religions to see what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Yeah.
At one point in my life, I was just fascinated why other people were doing what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And in that process, I got to find what worked for me.
Yeah.
Now I just wait to see what kind of pops up for me. Because I'm happy. I think the universe brings those things to you that you need, the path you need. So I gave most of my books away. I used to keep all of my books, and I thought they're not doing me any good on my shelf.
Yeah.
And if I need one again, I'll go pick it up. So I gave most of my books away so that they were out there being used. I think most of what we need to learn is inside us and not outside. And so I do less looking in books and classes and seminars than I used to. And I spend more time getting to know me.
Yeah.
But occasionally, all of a sudden, I'll look at a class that's advertised and that little light goes off, says, you're going to get something from that. Time to go.
Yeah. I think that's kind of a progression for a lot of people. I know that is for me as well, where, in the beginning or at some point in your life when you do start seeking out more information and finding answers to all these questions and wanting that connection to that thing that you feel, you just don't really have parameters for it quite yet, that you will seek out classes and books and information and just absorb all of that. And I do think you do get to that point where you go inside, where you look inside and see, I've got this wealth of information now, but what does it mean? How does it, what does that mean for me in my life and the universe and all that kind of stuff? So we're sitting here in your awesome space. This is a really, really neat room. I wish this was a video podcast so everybody could see. I'm surrounded by your crystal bowls and your tapestries and everything else. But tell me just a little bit about this space here and what you do here.
I have a space here at Sacred Energy Empowerment Center where I do my individual sessions. I also do small group crystal bowl meditations as well. But this has been here since November, so it's fairly new. Mm-hmm. And
just November of last year.
And before then I was doing work from home, which I really enjoyed. But I think there's a need to separate the energy work and what you're doing from your living space.
Yeah.
And when I had the opportunity to do so, I did. So Janet Wall, who runs this place, who owns it and runs the center, is amazing, great friend. And I just saw an opportunity to be able to take that another step. And really, I think it gave me the ability to step a little farther on my path and say, okay, I really want to help more people.
Mm-hmm. Well, like you said, I do think it's important to have a space for when, you're in this field and you have these, like you said, it's good to have the separation from your living space and your working space. And it just creates a different energy and a different vibration. And so it's cool that you're able to be here and do your thing here.
Yeah.
So somebody that doesn't know anything, because essentially, in the Energy is Love podcast, we talk to a bunch of different people and involved in a bunch of different modalities and everything like that. Mm-hmm. And you mainly focus your stuff in regards to sound healing, right?
Well, sound's the main thing I do now. Mm-hmm. My love and passion is shamanic work. And I still do that. I'm a Reiki master, and I do that. I think what I've discovered from looking at quantum touch and theta and all these different energy and healing and modalities is they're all doing the same thing. They're just moving energy.
Yeah.
And I've kind of done the same thing with the modalities that I did as I was looking at religion and spirituality. I've taken the pieces that work for me from each of those. So I really call my work alchemy. And it's the spiritual alchemist, because I'm taking all these different pieces and just using them. So I like to focus on sound because it's so simple and so powerful. But quite often in a session, out comes a drum and rattle and crystals, and they're always different. It's really more about the person you're working on. I feel that nobody has ever healed anybody else. I feel what most energy workers get to do is they get to create a space for their client to heal themselves.
I agree.
So, and within that, if you have a client that doesn't believe in Reiki, you're not going to do any good with Reiki. Doesn't matter how much energy you throw at them and how committed you are. If they're not committed and they don't understand it or believe it, it's not going to happen. So everybody understands sound.
Yeah.
There's nothing to, it's like, here, lay down. Let me give you some real, if nothing else, you're going to just feel good. But the sound and vibration is just a big part of us. So it's not tied to a spirituality or religion. It's just really simple. So it's an easy way to start off. But quite often other tools and things are added in.
You incorporate all that other stuff in there.
And what happened was years, and I'll say 5, but I've probably been saying 5 years for 5 years. It's probably been 7 or 8 now. I'm not sure, but I bought one bowl for my own healing work, just to work with myself. I think most people that do work on others and energy work and help others don't give to themselves enough. And I was point in my life where I needed to do some healing work on myself, and I bought one bowl. And I knew what it did for me, but I used it occasionally in my sessions, in my Reiki and shamanic sessions with other people, and I watched how it fascinated me how quickly it could do things and how people responded and how it could touch them. And so I bought another bowl, and then I bought another bowl, and I keep buying bowls.
It becomes like rocks and crystals. I'm sure it just becomes that obsession. You can't walk into a store without being like,
Well, I'm
got bowls, I'm in trouble.
I'm the crazy guy at the thrift store banging on kitchen bowls. And that's one thing I'm not, I understand the science of sound healing. I understand the different scales and all the things that are out there that have been written about the science of it. But it's really about the person and their intent. It's not so much about the note of the bowl or what the bowl's made of. You can have two sticks and bang them together and create a melody and put a person in that theta wave or wherever they need to go to do their healing work. It's not about having, I mean, I've got some beautiful, expensive crystal bowls, but it's not necessarily about those. I've got a $5 kitchen bowl that I use as much as I use my crystal bowls.
That's cool.
So I think there's a lot of great information out there, but I think we need to be more, well, I know for me, I had to be more open and look at what was out there. I've used a thing of Tic Tacs as a rattle in a session because I didn't have my rattle with me. It's not about the tool. It's about the intent.
You know, you said one of the reasons why you like sound healing and using sound in your sessions and things like that is because it's, you know, people can resonate and connect with it much easier because it's not connected to some modality or some religion or something like that. But I think it is. I think it's, you know, I think it's connected to the universe. I think it's Mother Earth. It's what the world kind of functions and operates on. And so that's why people are so connected to it and can do it so quickly. I think that's really, really cool. How long have you been doing not just sound work and things like that, but energy work and working with clients and stuff like that?
Working with clients about, it's got to be close to 10 years now.
Yeah.
I've always been the observer. I'm a hermit. I would be happy to just be home and watch things happen. But at a point, you need to step up and do what you're supposed to be doing. And it wasn't serving me or any other, or the people around me to just sit back and observe anymore. So it's been a real, for someone that's, you know, likes to be the hermit, likes to be the introvert, to step out and be in front of people and do that. It was a real challenge for me to begin with.
I bet.
And it still is. It's one of those lessons I get to learn. Even when Chad and I get in front of a big group to do the sound bath experience, I just have to, okay, it's okay. So it's,
I was going to say, somebody that doesn't like being in front of people, you sure do a good job at it.
Well, I think that's one of the lessons that I needed to learn, was it was okay. And the universe put me right in front of people.
Yeah.
So,
well, what did you do before this?
Jack of all trades. What did I do before? Originally I was in the graphic arts industry. My title was a stripper. And yeah, I know. You should see when I applied for loans and things, people would look at me like, oh, he can't make any money at that. But it was a great job. It was made plenty of money at that time. And then the computer came along in the graphics industry and destroyed really a lot of the craftsmanship.
Uh-huh.
So I left that. I ended up doing mortgages for a long time until I watched the industry starting to change and doing things that just seemed very unethical, and got out of that, and then went into business for myself. Ran 4 different businesses. I think a lot of it was just to keep me busy, keep me out of trouble. But I did that until right up to my divorce. And then as my divorce happened, I realized it gave me that time to step back and say, what am I doing? You know, I realized I wanted to start going back to doing what I loved to read about and to think about was the energy work. Mm-hmm. And so it was time to go back to that. And I'd continued to study and read things all my life, but I'd never really stepped out. And most people around me didn't know that was anything I even studied or looked at or understood.
Yeah.
So it was really, my divorce was a blessing because it gave me the ability to follow my path and be me, and help others. And that's what I've always wanted to do. Even when I was in business and owned my businesses, I tried to pay a better wage than other people and give them the freedom they needed to go to school programs or whatever. It just the things that other companies didn't do. I wanted to have employees that got things and were happy, and I always wanted to help somehow. Mm-hmm. And so but business wasn't the way. I realized that, and I was able to take a little time off and really look at what I wanted to do. And if someone had told me at that time it'd be sound, I would have laughed at them. So I think that's part of when we started talking about how I'm not sure where my path is, that who knows, because I would have never have thought I would be doing sound as a major part of what I'm doing.
Did you ever think that you would be working in the field of like energy work and things like that? Or, I mean, how long was that a passion before you actually started doing it?
I was reading books. The old Golden Braid back for people in Salt Lake that remember that little place. I'd go into the basement and buy used books every Friday, every payday. Probably 18, 19, I was reading, and I studied and read and read and read. I was constantly reading. As far as knowing that it was going to be a career, I never thought about it as what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Until the divorce, and when I realized, because at the time I thought, let's take a break and look at what, let's just do a new business. Mm-hmm. That was my thinking at the time. And when I sat back and let all the dust settle, it was like, well, why do you want to go into business? What brings you joy? Mm-hmm. What brings you happiness? What intrigues you? And that's what I did. I took a big leap of faith.
That is a big leap of faith. It's one that, it's really difficult for people to do that. Is this all that you do now, or do you still have a part-time gig that you're...
This is all I do. I had a part-time... I did phones, worked with a company for a while in the stock market, mm-hmm. But I didn't work a lot. Worked from home, didn't have to do it was not a lot of hours, but I finally just decided that even though it wasn't getting in the way of what I was doing, that I just needed to let the universe know that I wanted to do only this, yeah. That that I didn't need that other piece, mm-hmm. And so in a way too, I felt, because what we were doing was helping people. We were training and helping people that were having issues in this. So I still felt like I was helping people somehow, but I came to a point where I just didn't feel that I needed to be doing it, and I've never felt real good about the whole stock market and that whole
arena.
Yeah. So I was finally able just to disconnect from that completely.
I don't know what you're talking about. That's great energy. The stock market.
Yeah, it is.
You're doing nothing but putting out good stuff.
Yeah. So for me, it was, and that wasn't even a hard leap of faith, because I'd taken the big leap earlier. That was just finally like, okay, it's just time.
Yeah. It's
time to let the universe know that I've got bigger and better plans. And also too, I think it's not just what I'm thinking. It's if I push something out of the way or eliminate something in my life, what is the universe going to bring back? What's mm-hmm. it going to put that I don't know anything about? Like a crystal bowl.
Yeah.
Because it brought me a crystal bowl many years ago, and now it tends to be a big part of my life.
So I think we have a lot of listeners that, are on, obviously everybody's on their own path and on their own journey. But one of the biggest things that I think people struggle with is making that leap, going from not only what they perceived life to be and what they needed to do in life in order to not just be happy, but to sustain life and to sustain living and everything like that, and really committing to their passion and to their joy and just letting go and doing it. What would be some advice? Like if you were to sit down with somebody who was right at that point where they have something in mind, it doesn't have to be even energy related or anything like that, but they just have a passion in life, but they have all that fear and all that doubt wrapped around it. What helped you in that process?
Well, that's a good question. And I think depending on who's asking that, who you're sitting in front of, that response might be a little different, because everybody's, I think the blocks and the things that are stopping people, we put the label fear on it, but where is that fear founded in? Is it something that, did your father or family go into business and not succeed? Did something, or does the fear come from something that's, that internally, has it been played on you during the years of you growing up? But I think really what it is you have to stop. And I tell people, most of them, I tell them, try to step outside yourself and look at yourself in your present position. Are you happy with what you're doing? I know people that had, spent 8 years in college, good degrees, good jobs, and 10 years into it, they hate what they're doing.
Yeah.
They absolutely hate it. And it's like, so stop and take a step outside yourself and look and decide do you want to continue to be unhappy? Do you need that? And sure, you spend a lot of time in education and money to get that, but do you want to continue to be unhappy? Take a step. Sometimes it's a baby step. Other times it's jump off the cliff. Everybody's a little different, but decide what it is. Decide what makes you happy. And you don't necessarily need to make a living at it, but change things. I've seen people that continue to stay at their job, but change their perspective of it.
Yeah.
Change the perspective of their life and said, okay, I still need this to maintain and do some things, but what if I change this and this and this? So sometimes the changes are other things other than just the job or the things we're thinking about, but we start the process, and pretty soon the things we need, the changes, that everything starts to fall into place.
It does.
I'm a true believer that when you commit and the universe knows it, it'll bring you what you need.
Yeah.
And sometimes what you need is a hard lesson. What you need is I know a lot of people that have decided to be psychic readers or healers or whatever, and they sit and they go into business and they sit and they might sit for a month. Mm-hmm. And they start to panic going, wait, I've only done, I've had 2 clients this month.
Yeah.
I think part of that is the universe testing them. How committed are you? We're not just going to make you successful. Are you willing to sit? Are you willing to wait? Are you willing to do what it takes to make this happen? Because I think most people, if they got a taste of what energy workers get to see and do, would do this.
Yeah.
To me, I love what I do. To watch the changes in people and to watch the shifts and to see people release things that have been holding them back and to take the next step and to watch people wake up is what I love it. I mean, I've got the best job in the world. I don't even call it a job. Like, this is my playground. This isn't an office or a studio. This is my playground. This is where I play. I think we all need to get that inner child playing again. And that's what I do. I play.
That's awesome. Tell me a little bit more, because first off, there's people specifically when it comes to the field of energy healing in the universe and spirituality and things like that, where people, I mean, you didn't have some near-death experience or some big, ginormous, life-altering experience. It sounds like it was more or less just a continuing search into your own psyche and into your own soul and everything like that, right?
Yeah, that was part of it. As a young child, when I was 5, I spent some time in the hospital. Mm-hmm. And I specifically remember the doctors and the whole experience inside somewhere gave me this thing that thought there's got to be a better way. And I think part of my search too, besides looking at spirituality, was looking at energy work. And because I thought there's got to be a better way to deal with the body. I've got a twin sister who's a nurse. She goes to the hospital every day. You're gonna have to drag me into a hospital. I just don't. I think there's a need and there's a place for that, but I think it's a balance. It's a web, and sometimes you use Western medicine, but you use this piece, and you start to eat healthy, and you start to meditate, and you start to exercise. It's all these things that create health, but so much of the Western medical community that I see in the pharmaceutical is not about healing the body.
Yeah.
And so I think that experience that early on in life, besides studying spirituality, really made me want to look at what else was out there as far as energy work. And at that time when I was doing everything I could, every course, every seminar, there's some great things out there. I love Theta. Mm-hmm. I use Theta more for myself. I think a lot of the things I've learned I use in my own work.
Yeah.
But there are times when I'm with a client and all of a sudden something pops up that says, okay, this is what this is going to be.
Yeah.
And I've even got to the point where I moved everything out of the room and put 2 chairs and spent an hour talking with someone because that's what Spirit told me I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
It's not to me, healing is not a cookie cutter approach. One size does not fit all. everybody needs something different and is going to respond differently. And so I just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I love it. It's a surprise each time.
I think us in the community of, energy healing and workers and things like that, I think a lot of times we limit ourselves to our modalities, and you see people who will take course after course after course after course simply to build their resume of all the different modalities that they offer. And like you spoke earlier, I think they're all essentially the same thing, just tweaked slightly, and then you take that information and you incorporate it into what you already are naturally doing. So you're taking from all these different pieces. And I hope that I'd like to see people get away from that concept or the idea that you somehow need a modality or you need a certification or you need something in order to give yourself validation and to give that person sitting in front of you, validation that not to say that you don't need to study and that you don't need to put in time and effort and energy and things like that, but I could care less what your modality is.
Yeah.
For me, it's all just energy work, and we're all doing the same thing to a certain extent. And it's more about, the intention of that person and what space they're bringing for their client or the person that they're sitting with.
Yeah. I think the certificate doesn't mean anything. I mean, you can see one on my wall over there.
Yeah.
But I've never, in all the years I've done work, been asked, do you have a certificate? Most of my work is referral work, or I think people that the spirit pushes them. They see a flyer or someone says, here, here's a card. But I think you're exactly right. Is take the different pieces, but don't think you need a modality. Take what you've learned and make it yours. I love Reiki. I think that I think what Reiki has done for the community and energy workers is amazing.
Yeah.
But I've been to Reiki sessions where it was Reiki by the numbers, A, B, C, D. Well, that's great, but take it and use it. Don't do the A, B, C, D, E, F of it. Take it and make it yours. Make it powerful. Make it. I think it needs to be taught the way it's taught. I've had people over the years that wanted me to teach a class so they could be Reiki certified, and I told them I would have a hard time teaching it within the structure because I use it so differently.
Yeah.
So if you want a certification, go find somebody else. If you want to learn how I use it within the other things I do, great. But I'm not going to certify somebody because I won't teach it in that box because I think the box limits the power.
For sure.
I think the minute you take the box down, you get to open up and change things. And like I said, make it your own. I have a hard time putting a title on what I do or what I am. That's why I mystic, because I think mystic and alchemist, there's some questions with that. People go, oh, what is that? Well, I don't know either.
Yeah.
Because I'm doing a variety of things. I don't want to put a label that I'm a shaman or I'm a Reiki master or I think that label in itself limits you. And so also too, I don't do anything within the structure that I've been taught. I don't do the shamanic work just as shamanic work. And I've taken it and tweaked it to the way it feels best for me.
Yeah.
And I think there is something to be said to learn the things the way they've been taught, but don't get caught up in the boxes and structures or the certificate.
For sure. I know when I went through and got my certificate, for me, when I learned the modality that I was trained in and everything like that, and I went through that course and that experience, it really just, the realization that it taught me, this is how I already naturally work with it. And so, I wouldn't be able to sit down and teach a class because I'm not going to teach it the way that it's taught, and I don't use it the way that it's, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Designed to be used. And so I had the same experience where I just struggled with, I don't know what to call what it is that I do. I don't know what to call myself. And I think that's a really common thing. I wish there was somebody out there that could come up with something that we could all just call ourselves, so then society would know. But then, you miss out on the individualized aspect of everything. So that's important. When you were a kid, because I know for me personally, when I started to open up and I started to look at the universe and spirituality and everything like that, I had a whole bunch of things that would pop up from my memories as a child and experiences that I had kind of forgotten. But then, oh yeah, I remember this experience, or I remember that. Do you have things like that from your childhood where you realized, looking back now, that you were really connected and that, maybe you just lost your way?
I don't know if it was lost my way, but I think what I was doing was learning. I think what happens is as adults, as kids, we're very open. We play. Our imaginations are wide open. We're willing to think, and nothing is out of the realm of possibility as a child.
Yeah.
And then pretty soon someone tells us no, and someone says that's not impossible, and this happens, and pretty soon this big window that we've been looking at the world in becomes foggy, and pretty soon we're looking out a foggy window, and then the more we go through life, the foggier the window gets, and pretty soon it's just a little hole that we're looking at, and the world's views changed, and I think all of that stuff's still within us. We just need to remember. Mm-hmm. But as a child, once I started, especially with the shamanic path, and I started to realize the connection to nature I had as a child. I was lucky enough to, where I grew up, the backyard had a stream down and trails, and it was just for me, it was a lifesaver. And I realized how much time I'd spent down there in the stream, in the trees, and in nature. Yeah. And how that was a connection that I think really as a child saved me. I loved that connection. And I remember going back to that area, that same place, probably 7 or 8 years ago, and walking down one of the trails and listening to the trees say, thank you. Thank you for coming back and seeing us.
They missed you.
And it was just that realization, like, yes, so the connection was there. But it took me all those years to get back to it. But yeah. I've always had that connection to nature. And I think, I push that a lot with people, that nature's their best healer. Mm-hmm. Use it. Everyone, when I talk to them about that, they're, oh yeah, I always feel better when I go on a hike. Well, of course we do. Yeah. We're out connecting. But I'll tell people, take it to a different level. Really start to connect with intent as you're walking. With each footstep, feel Mother Earth, feel her heartbeat, get to know the tree that you're looking at. Just listen. It's all conscious. It's all alive. One of the things I think that would benefit most people is have a relationship with a tree. Mm-hmm. Get to know a tree. Find a tree that you can go sit with. And I tell people, you don't have to hug it, but if you have a relationship with it, at a point you're going to be hugging it, because sit back to back with it. Listen to the tree. Ask it for help. You'd be surprised how much knowledge they have, how much of that energy they can move off you that doesn't need to be on. They're a healer. They're an energy healer. And you go sit next to a tree, and it's got its arms up to the cosmos and the universe, and its roots down in Mother Earth, and it's just pulling this refined, beautiful energy down and washing you and giving that to Mother Earth. And I think that connection to nature is so important. I think it would change most people's lives if they could bring more of that into their lives.
For sure. So you mentioned your shamanic journey, or your path, when you've started to look into and research and find that. Tell me more about that. Like, what is it exactly that you got into?
There was a lot of different books, Hank Wesselman, Sandra Ingerman, Alberto from the Four Winds. There are a lot of books out there that I just started to read. Mm-hmm. And I realized very quickly that most of it I already knew. Yeah. It was like just reawakening something in me. I mean, I already understood this and knew it. And so that intrigued me. So I just started looking for as much as I could. And I've studied in the Native American, ancient Egyptian, the Aztec, the Inca, all indigenous cultures had some type of shamanic work. Yeah. Whether they called it that or not, to the Paco, the medicine man, but they all have something. That, someone that was connecting to nature and moving the energy of the village or the person or whatever. And so, and the same thing that I found reading all these different cultures is what I found with all the religions. When you strip away all the fancy stuff, the foundation is the same. It's respect yourself, love Mother Earth, understand that there is a force above and below, and that you are connected to it. And then they start adding in their little cultural things, which is fun. I love it. Peru, when I got to go down to Peru, was magical last year. And
I want to hear about that, because I remember seeing you. I think I don't remember if I saw you before you left, when you got back, or maybe both. But tell me about that trip.
That was life-changing for me, and I knew it was going to be wonderful. I'd looked forward to it for a long time. It was put together. A friend of mine, a couple friends of mine, they'd been down a couple years before, and he'd been Oakley has been going down, I think, 17 to 20 years back and forth. But he organized a group a couple years ago, and I wasn't able to go on that one and really wanted to. But and then we put this one together. We were able to go down and work with a mystic. He calls himself a mystic and a poet. Probably most amazing man I've ever met, Don Americo Yabar. And we were able to, when we first got there, a few of us did the Machu Picchu thing. There was only a group of, I think, 12 of us. And a few of us did the Machu Picchu thing that hadn't done it, which was nice. And I really enjoyed that. Part of what I saw there, though, kind of saddened me. It's turned into almost like a Disneyland.
Really?
So many people want to see it. And so many people. I was at the gates watching people out there with their liquor bottles, mixing drinks and partying because they were crossing something off their bucket lists. And I'm like, do you have no idea? Do you have any idea of what you're walking into? Yeah. I mean, the energy was incredible. And so and just the numbers of people were, it was a little disheartening. It was beautiful and it was an amazing place, but it was a little sad to see it that way. But I think you're going to find that with anything in life is you're going to have an element. It's the black and the white. It's the yin and the yang. And so I just had to put that to the side as I went in. But the rest of Peru, the trip, we were able, once we got back to Cusco, we all got together and connected with Americo and his son Gaili and some amazing places. And a lot of it, what we did was we would go to these ruins and historical places. A lot of people don't go. I mean, there'd be very few people there. Yeah. Amazing places. Some of them as big as Machu Picchu, but nobody there because they're not on a bucket list.
Yeah, it's not the tourist attraction.
Yeah. And we would just go sit and meditate. And we would sit down, and sometimes I didn't know if it had been 10 minutes or 4 hours that we'd been sitting there. But you would, by the time you were done, the shifts and the changes that had happened in you were, I still have a hard time putting it into words. I start every night with my journal. When I was in Peru, I would say, wow, another amazing day. I'll try to put words to it later. And after 3 days, I put my journal away because I said, there's no words. I don't know how to describe what's happening here. Yeah. Because it was life-changing, the things that happened. Americo works with energy like nobody I've ever seen, and he is also the most open-hearted, non-egotistical person I've ever met, and is just here to help and teach people. And I love part of what he talks about. He says, the things I'm teaching you, I don't want you to be me. I don't want you to be Don Americo. I want you to be a better you. Yeah. And you are different than me. And so I think, he is just, it's hard to describe a person like that. To me, he was the Dalai Lama of Peru. I mean, I don't know how else to, he's got that energy about him. Yeah. Just an amazing man. And to spend time with him, as much time that we got to, I was there almost 3 weeks. And it was life-changing. It took me a long time when I got back to Salt Lake to actually transition back into functioning. Yeah. Because I was still processing a lot of stuff. And also, too, coming from a culture that was so open-hearted. You meet people there, and it's, it's interesting. In the small villages, one of the first things they ask you is, how is your energy?
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Can I help you? Do we need to sweep some of it off? Or because they know that what we do in life is take energy on, and we need to find those ways to get it off. But, how is your energy? So they want to fix your energy before you have a conversation or before you hang out.
That's cool.
So I'm like, wow, so they get it, And then also their connection to the land, they name their fields. They have a gratitude for, I think gratitude is the biggest key there that we've forgotten here. They're grateful. They're grateful that they have a field that's alive and giving them food, and they know it. They know that field is alive, that the dirt is alive, that the plants that are growing are alive. And so there's this gratitude for their food, for the land, for their life that we've forgotten. And to come back to a place that just seems so cold and there wasn't gratitude. I remember I'd probably been home about a week, and I just thought, okay, I'm going to go to the grocery store. And I really I'd only left the house once, and it was for the Dancing Crane Psychic Fair. Yeah. But that was even difficult. But I left the house and drove was headed to the grocery store, and about halfway there, I'm looking around at the drivers and the energy that's all around me and thought, I really don't need to go to the grocery store. Just get me back home. But it took me quite a while to transition back.
Are you planning on going back anytime?
I'm hoping to go back next spring.
Mm-hmm.
Spring, summer, I'm not quite sure, but yeah, I'll go back at some point.
Do you have other places like that you want to go to?
There's a lot of places I'd like to see. Thailand is one. I'd like to go see some of the things that are going on in Thailand.
Yeah.
But in other places in the world, I'd like to do just to travel, just to see. But as far as Peru and the spirituality and what I got from that, I don't have too many places on a list like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's one of those things. I think what'll happen is when I get what I need from this road, from this path that I'm on, then it might be another location that pops up, something else.
Yeah, then it might be, another crystal ball that you didn't know was going to be out there.
Yeah. But right now I love the Peruvian stuff. It's and the people and the culture and I mean if I had, well, let me rephrase that. That is one of the things I always tell people. What you say and how you say it is so important. So I'm going to rephrase that the way that was coming out. When I have, instead of when I have the money, when the universe is ready for me, I will plan on doing an import business from Peru. I want to bring things over and give me the ability to travel back and forth more often and interact with the people. I mean, it really did feel like home.
Do you feel like that experience and that trip has changed? I mean, obviously, like you said, it's changed you immensely. So it had to have changed the way that you work with energy now and the way that you work with clients. Do you see that change?
Yeah. Everything's simpler.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I think I love best about Don Americo is it's about the simplicity of it. Mm-hmm. It's not getting... It's like you and I said, strip everything back, and the foundation of most everything, energy work, religion, spirituality, is all the same.
Yeah.
And what he seems to have done is just stripped all that away and said, here's the foundation, just use it.
Sounds like here's this foundation for life.
Yeah. Yeah. This is what we use. And it isn't just for energy work. It is for life. It's for dealing with people. It's for whatever situation you're in. And I think I always tell people that it's really, to me, if it gets complicated, it's not for me.
Yeah.
It might work for somebody else, but I like things simple. To me, it's as simple as love and gratitude and connection to the people and Mother Earth. And I think people try to complicate it, and I think it's really a lot more simple than all the books and all the courses and the things out there make it.
Yeah.
But I think we had to have all that to get to where we need to be.
To get back.
Yeah. So, but for me, my work is much more simple. I get out of the way because I think at one point I used to think that, I mean, I knew I was participating and I wasn't healing, but I was creating the space. But I think I've just gotten out of the way a lot more. It's just spirit doing what it's supposed to do. I'm just the conduit for spirit to do what it needs to do. And I try to get that simplicity to everybody else too, the clients especially. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah.
Make it simple. Make it easy. I don't think spirit wanted things to be complicated.
I agree. I know in my personal life, I find that I used to make things really, really complicated. And when I would try to, even, once I woke up and I started my spiritual journey, my awakening, even though I hate all of those terms, that drives me nuts, but I made it really complicated. And I realized that, it's just really easy. And it's like you said, just get out of your own way. And as soon as I started to do that more and more, and then I find when my life gets crazier, if I can just go back to those basic things, it brings so much clarity and happiness. But we got to talk about sound bath experience. That's how I know you. That's how I met you. So,
well, it's a lot of fun. It's a big part of what I do.
Yeah. Tell me how you met Chad.
Well, I was helping at a little store on 9th and 9th. I was just volunteering, while I was trying to figure out what path I was going to go on at that time. And I was just volunteering at a little store there, and he would come in and look at the bowls that were there. We had metal singing bowls and crystal singing bowls. And so he would come in but he's an amazing artist, not just a musician, but does murals. If anybody's been to the Primary Children's Hospital here and seen the mural up there that goes 3 stories, he is an amazing artist. Yeah. And he was working on some different projects, and he'd come in and show me the photos and play bowls, and we'd talk a little bit. And then I think it was one day we realized that we'd actually gone to school our entire lives together.
Really?
He was a little older, but we'd gone to the same grade school and middle school and high school all the way through. And it's like, oh, yeah. So, so we've known each other a long time, but as far as this part of our path, I think we started the Sound Bath about 4 years ago. So it was probably about 5 years ago we connected. And he was doing, his thing was the metal bowls. He loves the Tibetan metal bowls and was doing work with that. And I loved the crystal bowls and was doing work with that. And then we were having coffee one night, and a mutual friend of ours said, why don't you guys get together and try to play, see how it works? And so we tried that and went, oh, that's kind of nice. We might be able to make that work. And it's evolved quite a bit.
Even in the time that I've known you and known about the Sound Bath experience, it seems like probably like in the last 6 or 8 months, it's kind of exploding. Yeah. It seems like you guys are doing way more stuff now.
A lot more shows. And then what we're doing itself has changed and evolved. Mm-hmm. I remember, when we first started too, we'd play in rooms. We were happy to have 3 or 4 people.
Yeah.
But it was just because we were supposed to be playing. And this is something too that's interesting, is that I think that's part of the universe testing you. How committed are you? Because there were times that it took us a lot of time. It's hours of setup for what we do. Mm-hmm. And we were doing it on a donation basis. And we did a couple things where, after 4 or 5 hours of setup and playing and getting back home, we're splitting $11. And we're like, we spent more on gas than we did. But we just kept doing it.
Yeah.
And, the universe was like, oh, let's see how committed they really are. And then we had one that we were doing, and we had 3 people show up. And at that point, we were getting usually 15 to 20. So we thought, well, maybe it's run its course. Mm-hmm. And we're sitting there talking beforehand, before we did the show. And then afterwards, we're talking with the 3 people that are there. One of them happened to be a connection for something that we were trying to get into. And the next show we did, we played for 45 people. Nice. And we played for 60. And then we've played for as many as 300 in a show. And so we could have easily have given up and said, oh, that's it. We're over. That $11, split it, and let's call this quits. Yeah. But we just kept doing it because we loved it. And we'd watch what it would do for those few people. And we still do. We both do our own things as well as the Sound Bath experience. But it's just amazing to watch the people and then hear the stories after we're done. When people come up and just let us know what just happened to them. Yeah. We've had a woman that said it was the only time she's been able to connect with her husband who had passed away. And she just, had tried and tried, and all of a sudden Sound Bath connected. We had a woman a few months back that came in and said, next to childbirth, that was the most amazing experience I've ever had. And I'm starting to wonder, was that a good experience or a bad experience that she just had? But
that could go either way.
Yeah, I wasn't sure, but she seemed awfully happy.
Yeah.
But it's to watch the people and to hear the stories is so much fun.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I remember my mom dragged me to it with a couple of other people, and I didn't know anything about you. I didn't know anything about the Sound Bath, anything like that, and showed up, and it was when you guys were doing them at the Krishna temple.
I remember your mother coming.
That was, I had never been there either. So the whole thing was just a new experience for me, but I was excited for it. And then as soon as you guys started playing, I was just gone. It was one of the greatest meditations, and, that whole, just the experience of it. And then after that, it was like, I just have to tell anybody that I can tell about to come to this. And I dragged my wife with me, I think, to the next one that we came to. And then her and I had the same, experience of just our meditations kind of linked up and synced up together, where we had, similar experiences. And every time we go, it's just amazing. Yeah. So where are you guys doing them now? Because I know that there's a handful of places all the time.
The most consistent is Dancing Cranes. Mm-hmm. We're there at least once a month, usually the second weekend of the month. We're in the process of putting something together at Salt Lake Center for Spiritual Living that we'll be doing. We just played there last weekend, and we're going to start to do something consistent there, maybe every other month.
Yeah.
Ogden at the Ogden Eccles Community Arts Center, trying to do every 3 months there, and that may end up being every month. It's kind of juggling the schedule. I get to juggle things around. In the Peruvian thing, that you have the left world and the right world. The left is the mystical world and this wonderful, magical, and the right is where you get to function and pay bills and drive.
Yeah. And
I'd love to be in the mystical world. And so it's hard for me to play the scheduling and the business side of it, but it's a part of it. And so, but we keep pretty busy, both of us. But Dancing Cranes is the main location. And like I said, we both do our own things, but it's, and with the sound bath experience is very similar to what we've kind of been talking about here. Is Chad and I are about the rules of sound meditation. We've thrown anything in there. I mean, we've got ukuleles and keyboards, and it's a wall of sound. Well, we're not afraid to try anything.
Yeah.
And we don't take ourselves too seriously.
I was going to say, you guys don't really, if I remember right, you guys don't like necessarily get together and rehearse, or, I mean, it's not like you have some playlist that you're going to be doing. That's all just intuitive, natural stuff that you guys do, right?
Pretty much. We've really never rehearsed. What'll happen occasionally is Chad will say, hey, and Chad really is a musician. Chad will come in and say, I've got this guitar piece I just wrote. Do you have something that might go with it? Mm-hmm. And I'll listen, and sometimes that's 5 minutes before we start. That's usually when we're setting up. That's about the times we see each other is when we do sound baths. And so, but there is, what I tell people is there is kind of a framework with what we do, mm-hmm. but it's like someone's building a home and they've built the 2x4 framework, but within that framework, I don't know whether we're going to do wood paneling or we're going to paint or we're going to put wood floors or carpet or granite countertops or formica. What are we going to do? So there's a framework, but with where that goes is kind of the intuitive part of it.
That's way cool.
And quite often, Chad and I look at each other and just smile and laugh like, did that just happen? Did we just do that?
Is that as cool as for you as it was for me?
Well, and it's interesting is we used to evaluate them a lot, and we'd be finished and say, boy, that just didn't work. It just didn't feel right. And some people we consistently come to the sound baths, we call them our Omis, would come up and say, that was the best one yet. So I realized very quickly it wasn't about what I was thinking or getting out of it. It was about what was going out. Mm-hmm. And everyone was getting what they needed to from it. So I listen and I watch and to see what we can add and tweak and change, but I pay more attention to people and the energy that's going on out in front of me.
Yeah. Do you guys have any sort of vision as far as where you want to take it or where it's headed? Is there stuff coming up in regards to expand? When I say expansion, but we've been asked for years now about a CD. If we have a CD, and we kept telling everybody soon. And I guess soon is a very relative term because we still don't have the CD, but it's going to happen. Yeah. And both Chad and I are glad that we waited this long to record, because I think we refined things enough and changed things enough and been through enough that we realize how we want to do the CD and what we want to put on there. Mm-hmm. And then I think we might change things drastically after that. The next sound bath could be very different. You just never know. Yeah.
I don't know. It's, but we'd like to eventually, put the CDs together and then go out and take it on the road a little bit, take it to some other places. Yeah. Go out maybe on the western U.S. to California and Oregon, Washington, just go to some places.
That would be awesome.
So
traveling sound bath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Super cool.
But I need roadies. I'm tired of carrying boxes, so.
Yeah, I can't blame you. You guys got to rent that big U-Haul and then find somebody to drive it.
Yep.
So I like to talk to people too about, because I think a lot of times it's people think that we're all just crazy hippies that are stuck in the clouds, and I think we're all just really normal people. So tell me a little bit about just like you, the regular guy, the guy that isn't all about the sound bath or all about connecting to nature. Not that that's a bad thing in any way, shape, or form, but
I love college football. Yeah, I'm not much. I like sports, but I not typically. I like college football over pro football. Mm-hmm. I like college basketball, and I think over the NBA, but I think part of that is because what I see is people that are, most of them playing for the love of the game.
Yeah, there's that passion in there, huh?
There's a passion, and also the crowd's into it. You know, it's a whole different. It's the energy feeling of it is what it is, and so. But I love to sit and watch a good college football game. I love soccer. I love sports, so I love to open a beer up and sit and watch a game. I mean, a good dark beer. I always tell people that I think we were put down here to have fun. Mm-hmm. You know, so I'm going to have my glass of wine if I want to. So I like a good glass of wine. I like to sit and I don't do much TV, but I like movies occasionally. Mm-hmm. But I spend a lot of time taking care of my parents' yard. My parents are getting older, and my dad has a real hard time with it. I spend a lot of time at their house taking care of their yard, with family things. My girlfriend, her grandson comes over every Saturday and hangs out. And quite often I'm doing the sound bath somewhere, but it's fun hanging out with him. And just, I love to cook. I'm usually the one cooking. My schedule is a lot more flexible, so I like to go home and get things started. So when she gets home, that something's usually there ready for her. Yeah. But I'm just, and I can get mad just like everybody else. I get cut off in traffic. What happens though is that initial reaction of I'm you get that anger. Uh-huh. But what I see is that the anger goes away, dissipates just like that now. I think in the past, I would have carried that with me through the entire day. It would have ruined my day. Yeah. And I think that's what happens in the more we learn about this, is that we're going to continually go through lessons. Mm-hmm. Stuff's going to continually come at us. What happens is how quickly we acknowledge it, are grateful for it, and then let it go. Most people want to make it their story. They drag it with them. It becomes their drama. It becomes their excuse. Yeah. Just let it go. Move on. It's done. It's over. So I think what happens is I tell people that this path of spirituality isn't necessarily bliss. You're going to have a lot of stuff come up, and you're going to be releasing and letting it go. What happens is it gets to the point where it just gets easier and quicker. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay. And sometimes it's the same issue we've been dealing with for 25 years, but what happens is now that trigger doesn't ruin our day. It doesn't ruin the week. It's like, oh, wow, well, I wonder why that came up, and I don't feel good about it, and then off we go. Yeah. And so I'm a pretty typical guy. Most people that would run into me would have no idea, looking at me, that I do what I do. Mm-hmm. In fact, for a long time, I would have people come up to me at Dancing Cranes, and I'd be playing the bowls over there that they have for sale. Yeah. And I'd be playing them, and they'd come up and say, have you ever been to the sound bath here? It's so cool, because I was almost invisible up on that stage, because I just didn't, it wasn't for me. It wasn't about me being there. It was about giving to the people. Yeah. So I loved the fact that I could be invisible for a long time, and people didn't know it was me. I'm like, yeah, I've been. It is pretty good, isn't it?
You're pretty good playing that bowl. You should go to the sound bath.
So one thing that I do, and I try to tell everybody, is that expect magic in your life. When I get in the car in the morning, or as I'm sitting there in the morning having my coffee, watching the sun come up, or the hummingbirds, I expect something magical to happen that day. And I just throw it out there to the universe. I wonder what magical thing's going to happen today. And sometimes it might be the sunset that you get to sit and look at. People have forgotten the magic that is and what's around us, but pay attention. Magic's all around us. It happens every day. Yeah. And the laughter and the start to look for magic, look for love, look for laughter. Put your energy and your thoughts into that, and watch what you attract.
That's a good way to move through life.
Law of attraction. It's huge, and I understand. That's another one. The book's great, and all the stuff they do. Mm-hmm. Take the pieces. It's really as simple as what you put out, you bring back. Yeah, you're attracting the energy that you put out, whether it's thinking, saying, writing, whatever you're doing. You're putting that energy out, and it's going to attract that to it. So start changing your thoughts. I have a big reset button. It's our nature to not be positive, to think of things. We've been trained to beat ourselves up. We've been.
I was going to say, I don't know if is that our nature? Or
it's not our nature. It's our programming. It's our programming. And so I've got a big reset button, the big red reset button. I think it was on commercial on the TV at one time, but I'll be driving down the road and I'll hear that mind inside say something, or I'll, think something, and I have to say to the universe, no, reset. That's not what I meant. Mm-hmm. I get to change that thought. And I think we have to be so careful of what we think and how we say things and what we're putting out there, because that's what we're bringing back into our lives.
Yeah.
So expect magic, and guess what happens? Magic
comes.
Expect to meet wonderful people that are similar and that you can learn from and love and care about and watch what happens. Mm-hmm. Those people come to you. It is a magical world we've forgotten.
Yeah. Now we just have to get everybody else to see that.
Well, and they're all on their own time. Some people, I think, may be on this lesson and this time. It might be that they're not supposed to learn that this time. Their lesson might be something completely different. And it might be to teach us something or to teach somebody else something. I had an experience many years ago where I did a house cleansing on a place where there had been a murder, mm-hmm. and didn't know any of the people that I walked into the house, and there were a dozen or so people sitting there having coffee at this kitchen table, neighbors, friends, the sister of the woman that had been killed, and I'm listening to them, and most everybody assumed they knew who had done it, and there's just this vengeance and this hate and this anger about this whole thing going on, and I'm sitting listening to it, and at a point when they looked at me, I said, okay, I'm going to say something here, and I know I don't know any of you, and this might make you mad, and if you want me to leave, that's fine, but this is what I'm going to say. I said, you need to thank him for what happened, for what he did. I said, he drew the short straw. I said, try to look at it this way. I said, we all came here to learn lessons and experience things, and this is an experience that all of you are going through right now. And at some point, maybe those two were standing in a room and said, well, one of us gets to teach this group a lesson. Which one gets to be the bad guy?
Yeah.
Let's draw a straw. Well, he drew the short straw. He came down and had to be a terrible person. Mm-hmm. He had to do terrible things. Eventually was convicted of it. But he got the short straw. But look at what we're all learning from this. Look at the connections that are happening. Look at what's happening here. I said, this is part of what's supposed to happen. So don't hate him. Be grateful that it wasn't you that got the short straw, and thank him for the lessons that he's teaching you. And it changed the whole dynamic of the day. I spent the entire day there. I didn't leave. I bet I was in that house 8 hours. Wow. And I had people there that said I couldn't even drive by the house for the past 2 weeks because it hurt so bad. Now I just want to be here. Mm-hmm. But it changed. It shifted from vengeance and hate to, oh, wait. Yeah, this, maybe he is teaching us a lesson. So some people are here not to wake up, I think. They're here to teach us a lesson. There's some people that aren't going to go on a path of light and love and be labeled wonderful, great people. Yeah. But what they're doing is a service to everybody because they're teaching us something. There's a lesson there from whatever they're doing that we're supposed to learn.
That's a really beautiful point, the way you described that whole experience and everything. And for me, on my path and on my journey, I had the realization after a while, and this is kind of the way I move through life now, is thinking that there's not really good or bad. For me, it's just all energy. Yeah. And so that whole perception thing and the way that you can shift and change out of it, I've experienced it, I've seen it, and I think it's an important thing for people to try to wrap their mind around.
And it's hard. That's like I said, the reset. And I like that you changed me. It's not our nature, but we've been programmed with a lot of stuff, and our programming tells us that we're supposed to be angry, that this is bad, that this, and we need to get away from that programming. This is a lesson. There's an education in front of us. It's not something that's bad or good. It's an education. Yeah. Everything's out there to teach us something, and that's hard when something specifically happens to you or somebody that's close to you. Your initial thing is to get angry and to mad and to label whatever's just happened. I think there are things that I've gone through my life that I thought, what will I ever get out of that? And 5, 6, 10 years later, I'm in a situation where all of a sudden, that's why I went through it. Yeah. So it's something that, And I work on it all the time too. Like I said, my reset button, it gets used a lot. In fact, it's probably time to order a new one because I'm resetting all the time. But what happens is I realize it's that conscious thing. It's not subconsciously happening anymore. That the mind isn't taking control and saying things and doing things. It's you start to realize really how powerful we are as manifestors.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens is the minute you hit that reset button, you watch the energy shift. You watch things change. If you don't hit it, you realize that you crash and you go, oh, wait a minute, what just happened? And I think especially right now, we're manifesting things very quickly.
Yeah.
And so I'll encourage everybody to get a reset button. Listen to yourself. It works for me, but it's pay attention to what you're saying, how you're saying things, what you're thinking. It's so critical. That mind chatter that we have, we're tougher on ourselves and we say things to ourselves that we'd never say to anybody else. Mm-hmm. We have to stop that. We have to love ourselves. You do work, I do work. We're around a lot of people that do this energy work, and I see that, and I watch amazing things happen. But if we truly love ourselves, it amplifies that work. We have to take care of ourselves first and understand who we are and love ourselves completely and give to ourselves, and then we can really, truly help others beyond any measure that I know.
I agree. Well, it's been great chatting with you. I was looking forward to this interview, and you didn't let me down.
Well,
super interesting.
I know how my mind goes, so it may have wandered around, but that's me, people. If you get to hang out with me, you'll find I just kind of wander around with life and thoughts and what's going on.
Yeah, no, it was great. So tell me, where can people find you? Where can they, contact you? Where's all your stuff at?
Right now, I've Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
I have a page that's the Mystical and Spiritual Alchemist on Facebook. I'm also at Sacred Energy Empowerment Center, and there is a website for that's got some information about the center. I do my individual sessions there, as well as...
How long are your sessions typically?
They're always different. They can go anywhere. It's usually the minimum is about half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen them go as long as 2 hours. But it's all depending on the person.
Yeah.
Everyone's different. Some people, at a point, they've released enough energy that it's over.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of times it's talking. But every session's different. And I kind of use a sliding scale because of that, because I'm really never sure what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I'm here, and there is a website, and there's great classes here as well. This is a wonderful place. It's your first time here.
Yeah, I've never been here. It is a really, really neat space.
It's a wonderful space, and so there's a website that's got some information. It's got my information on it as well, which is sacredenergyslc.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the sound bath, for the people that interested, maybe a sound bath meditation, big group sound bath, it's the Sound Bath Experience on Facebook.
On Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
When is the next sound bath?
The next one is January. Wow. Yeah, we're really busy. No, next one is June. June 11th and 12th at Dancing Cranes. There'll be 2 shows on Saturday the 11th, the 1 and 5, and then one on Sunday at 1 o'clock. And there's information on the Facebook page about that. So
yeah, we'll link to all of that too, obviously on ours, and you'll be able to find it when the episode goes up and everything like that. So I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate it, and good to see you. I've been away from certain activities for a while here at Dancing Cranes and other things, and it's been a while since I've seen you. So
yeah, well, I love it. That's one of the reasons I wanted to do this, is because I meet all these amazing people, and I know we know each other. We've known each other for a little bit, but we don't ever really get the time to sit down and chat. So it's been great chatting with you.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I'm the crazy guy at the thrift store banging on kitchen bowls. My title was a stripper.